Voting Theory Class 3 Video 1. For the next few classes, I'm going to talk about some famous voting systems. So these are voting systems which, at one point in history or another, for the most part, mathematicians or political scientists or economists proposed these as good voting systems. Okay, for the most part. Remember that a voting system is any set of rules, any algorithm which takes a voting profile. So it takes the information of how everyone voted and it outputs a societal ranking. So it tells you, based on the information of how everyone voted, who should win, who should come second, who should come third, so on and so forth. Okay? Well, there are so many different ways of doing this. Like there's lots and lots and lots of different ways of taking that information, taking the voter profile and outputting a societal ranking. But as you can imagine, a lot of them are just not very good. A lot of the ways they're not very representative or they're a bit random. Like a lot of the voting systems which are possible are not good. So we're going to focus on famous, important voting systems which for the most part smart people have proposed that they should be used for the most part. The first voting system I want to talk about is one which is not regularly proposed as a fair voting system. It's a dictatorship. Okay, so I'm not saying a dictatorship is a good voting system. I'm not saying it's a bad voting system either. I'm using it as an example because it's an extremely easy voting system. Okay, some of the later voting systems which we're going to talk about, they're quite complex. They require multi-rounds of calculation, and it's non-trivial to apply these voting systems. But the dictatorship, its shining quality is that it's extremely simple, okay? And that makes it a good example. It's also quite a famous example, so we should talk about it. So let's begin with the formal definition, my formal definition of a dictatorship. So in a dictatorship voting system, the outcome of the election is completely determined by one particular voter, and we call that voter the dictator. Okay? So this might seem a bit weird, and it might not fit directly with your notion of what a dictatorship is in the real world, but this is how I'm going to define a dictatorship. So in my idea of a dictatorship, everyone still votes. Okay? So all the electorate still vote, but only the vote of the dictator is counted. So everyone else's vote, they're just discarded. Okay? So the dictator, however the dictator votes, that's the outcome of the election. So everyone votes, and then you look at how the dictator voted, and that's the outcome of the election. So let's just do a quick example. If we have this voting profile right here, okay? And if voter V1 is the dictator, then the outcome is A beats B beats C, because that is what V1 voted for. Notice I don't write any subscripts here because this isn't a voter's, I'm not referring to a particular voter's preference. This is the societal preference. This is the outcome of the dictatorship voting system, if V1 was the dictator. And you can obviously do this if someone else is the dictator as well. So if V2 is the dictator, then the outcome is B beats A beats C. Okay, so this is an example of the dictatorship voting system, depending on who the dictator actually is. And as you can see, it's extremely simple. You just look at who the dictator is and look at how they voted, and that's your answer. Okay. In later videos, we're going to examine more complicated voting systems. But that's the end of this example, and that's the end of this video.